Hello and welcome everybody. This is another episode of Executive Talk. My name is Maurice Washington. I'm your host. I want to welcome everybody that's here live in our studio audience. And also I want to welcome all those that are viewing us live. Thank you guys so much for your time. In today's show, we're going to talk about, today's topic is titled The Marriage Effect. Now, I know this is a business show, but marriage, if you're married or if you're thinking about getting married, this is part of business ownership, is your marriage, because you're bringing everything right along with you. So this is why we're discussing this particular topic. In discussing this topic, please do not disassociate yourself. Just because you're not married or you're not in the process yet, please pay attention, because this is business ownership has a lot of effect and puts a lot of pressure on marriages. And I know you guys know the divorce rate is fairly high out there, and this is part of the reasons why. And this is business ownership sometimes is a catalyst to it. But there is a way to actually get through it, and we're going to talk about that. But in order to do that, we have to properly position and actually bring up the reasons why. So I want you guys to track with me also, okay? Because everything that I'm mentioning has everything to do with a particular slide going forward. So think about it. Remember, there's two people. You got the male and the female over here, two different demographics. One could live in Colorado, one can live in Kansas, okay? But one thing that's common about each of them have been raised from the age from 0 to 18. Now, both sets of parents for both of these families, okay, both sets of families have worked a 9-to-5 schedule. In general, a lot of people don't come up in the upbringing of business ownership. Okay, so that whole time from 0 to 18, maybe you traveled once a year. That's something that your family did. You guys traveled once a year. That was something that you guys did. It was just part of your circumstance, part of how you guys saw life. You saw your mom or dad come home from work a little cranky. Okay, they came home. You know what, Bob and Sue, they have no idea what they're doing. You know, I can't believe I have them as a manager. This is crazy. But then they got over it pretty quick and they went back to their normal lives and then worked to that job from 20 years plus. That's what you saw growing up, and that's been your experience regarding how work and how you should get through life is working that 9-to-5 job. So neither one of them have had experience with anybody owning a business and actually being part of a family. So after you're 18, let's say you guys meet each other. You guys are both 30, okay? The woman is 30, the male is 30. You guys meet each other. Here's your resume, okay? So think about it. After 18, you're getting into your own life. You're finally settling down. And this is your resume when you guys meet. His resume looks like this. He works out 5 days a week. You're like, girl, okay. This guy, he works out. He really takes care of himself. Check, okay. He loves to cook also. Oh, that's a double check. We're good. You know, this is absolutely going to be my guy. He loves to spend time with me. You know, as soon as he gets off work, that's the first thing he thinks about is spending time with me. Check again. He earns actually some pretty good income. He makes about $4,000 a month. So the girl thinks about her income. Okay, I make $4,000. He makes $4,000. That's $8,000 a month. That's $96,000 a year. That's another check. Girlfriend, this might be the one. Okay, and then you hear this conversation from that guy. You know what? One day I would love to own my own business. You're like, and he's motivated? It can't get any better. Oh my gosh, jackpot. Okay, this is his resume. Now he's looking at her in her resume. She works out 5 days a week also. You're like, check. All right, man. She loves to work out. She loves to cook. My mom loved to cook, and she loves to cook. Oh, I won't miss a meal. Perfect. And she's a good cook. This is awesome. She's always creative. She always figures out creative things to do. You know, when I'm bored, she always comes up with this brand new idea, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of anything like that. Let's go. This woman's awesome. She earned income, the same thought process. Okay, I earned $4,000, she earns $4,000. We'll have a pretty good life. That means we'll be comfortable, we'll be cozy. And we're actually living out the same dream that we grew up in from 0 to 18. We both have gainfully employed. When we both sit down at the table, we complain about the people that we work with. We don't like them. You know how that goes. And then et cetera. The list goes on. But this is the presentation that leads to the next slide, which is wedding. Do you see anything in here that said, now this is the concept. I would love to own my own business. He's not owning his own business yet, right? But the concept, this is something that's percolating through his mind, is I would love to own it, but it's not actually it. The actual fact that you're marrying is this presentation right here as it stands. So then the vows, which, as you know, the vows, the next word for a vow is a promise. Okay, I, John, take you, Susan, to be my lawful wedded husband, wife, whatever the circumstance is. Now listen to this phrase, to have and to hold. These are part of the promises. From this day forward, so from this day going forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness, in health, until death do us part. Now, is there anything that says to have or to hold when you're making me happy? There's no compromise in there, is there? It doesn't say for richer, I will love you till death do us part. But when you're poor, I don't think I'm gonna love you till death do us part. Okay, because if it had those little statements in there, then that would be actually conditional love, wouldn't it? But this vow, these promises are made from an unconditional love perspective. So think about this. The next word that happens is cleave. As soon as you say, I now pronounce you man and wife, everybody's throwing the rice and everybody's happy, you're happy, you give that kiss, you guys start moving down the aisle. The cleaving has taken place right there. What is the definition of cleaving? It's to stick to something like glue. Pay attention to this particular definition because it's going to come back around. But it's to stick to something together like glue. So that means that's the relationship. Leave and cleave and become one. So what is the leave and cleave part? So that means leave what? Leave everything that you knew. Now, you are who you are when you grew up and everything, but leave your parents out of it. Whatever that was before that marriage is out of there. It is just you and her. And then become one and then move forward. What is the glue made of? Okay, this is something that we don't ever really think about. The trust, the honesty, the protection, the promises, the vows, the love, and the relationship. Okay, that's what you married. You married this description right here. Now, which part do you think couples take with them? As soon as you get into the marriage, what happens? Well, I have them. This is for better, for richer. We still have money. We're good. In health, I'm healthy. She's healthy. We're good. Till death do us part. I can do this. This is not as bad as what is everybody talking about? This is hard. Everything's good because you're at this particular part of the vow, and you forgot about the other part because this other part says, what part do we forget? To hold. What is the holding part? The holding part is the support. Okay, to have and to hold. For better and for worse. We forget about the worst part. We don't ever think about that going forward because we're such in bliss from the time that we meet each other to the time that you get married that you forget about these worst times that are headed your way possibly. For poor, you didn't meet them while they were poor. It's not like you met them on the side of a corner somewhere. And that's what you married into, because that's a different presentation. You already understand what the poorer part of is. But you married, just because it's not your custom of wealth of 100,000 or whatever that looks like, doesn't mean that you didn't marry into wealth. Okay? There's still a level of richness there. So you didn't marry the poorer part of it. In health, the person didn't have cancer. The person didn't have some of these issues going on at the time. So in sickness, it's irrelevant to you. What's the dangerous part? Now, because you forgot these parts, you start to take each other for granted. If you forget these parts, you have no choice but to take it, because this is what you're doing this relationship off of, this marriage. for better. So when you guys argue, is that better? No, not at all. That's that worst part of it, because you have to come back home to that same argument, don't you? You can't really leave it. So now let's track with me on this. Now you went from the relation part. You had your resume. Okay, it's nice and solid, looked good. You got married. Now you're in the thick of it. Now you're in 2 years of marriage. This is what the new resume looks like. His resume, he works out whenever. That 6-pack that he promised you when he was working out, now it's just 1 pack. Okay, just one big old pack. He's lost a couple of jobs. Okay, when he was gainfully employed, now all of a sudden those conversations, I'm going to quit, or he gets fired, or whatever the case may be. But, he's lost a couple of jobs in between that time. Now you're like, I didn't see this part coming. Now you start getting introduced to that worst part of it. Not much time is spent. Now you're jockeying for position. Now football season, and then basketball season, and then even soccer becomes part of your whole entire relationship. You got to compromise. It's not the same as it used to be. Now, when he was Mr. Chef, now he just kind of cooks every now and then. He cooks once a week on accident because he's starving and just happens to feed you. Now, her resume, it starts to change as well. That's where, again, it starts to, nobody's really perfect in this whole scenario, because everybody starts to kind of take their hat off once you get introduced to unconditional love. You're like, oh, you're going to love me forever. We have these vows. Now, the light workouts, now all her workouts are she's sitting down on the chair and doing the curls. And says, whew, girl, I almost sweated. I don't want to do that again. All right, so it's only 3 days a week. Now, she's working part-time now. She doesn't have that same income that she has. She's like, I want to do something a little different, but in between time, I'm just going to work part-time to make sure bills are paid and everything's good. Her interests have changed. You're like, who are you? I didn't know you like that. Now you're really confused. Doesn't have time for cooking anymore. All of a sudden, she has to run around with her girlfriends. She don't have time. When she cooks, it's SpaghettiOs. And you're trying to figure out what in the heck happened to those meals that happened in the beginning of this relationship. So there's what's happening in this time frame, in this 2 years, there's a level of disappointment that starts to integrate into your relationship. Because a lot of it, you start to feel, was I bamboozled? Who were you before? Because again, remember what you married what you married, the resume that you married. Remember that. So then think about it. Here comes the big hitch. The big announcement. Remember earlier in that earlier resume, the guy said, hey, I want to get my own business. You know what? I'm finally fed up, sweetheart. It's time for me to own my own business. Now, do you think she's happy? It's a 50-50, but probably not exactly. Because what has she seen? She's actually developed a reputation with your significant other when you start loosening up the reins, when you stop doing those things that got you there in the first place. Now she's like, how are the bills going to get paid? This is your first introduction to richer and poorer. You're like, oh my gosh, we could actually, I've never seen you complete anything before, and now you have what it takes to become a business owner. This is what the problem of this taken for granted phase right here in this 2 years. Now, when you're trying to go back and lean on your cleave and the glue and the trust and honesty, you beat it up so bad that now you have nothing to lean on. So then what's introduced is a lack of faith, and that's what this fear looks like. The business owner, the one who is aspiring to become a business owner, is my spouse truly going to be supportive of me during this? She says it, but I don't know if this is something that doesn't feel right. What if we lose everything, again, for richer or for poorer? So in business ownership, one of the main 2 vows that becomes apparent is that richer or poorer, and to have and to hold. Now, because of this fear, your marriage is absolutely compromised. Now, the reaction, your heart becomes hard in order to support or to actually hold on to. Okay, it's you guys know how it is when you're not vulnerable. You start hardening your heart. You're like, I'm not going to feel the pain if this goes bad. So the immediate reaction is hardened heart. So let's talk about this hardened heart. Here's hardened heart statements, and you guys, we've all said them at some phase in our lives. These statements look like perseverance, and they look like support, but they are not. This is the conversation. Hey, honey, I was going to pay that bill this week. And this is that person that said, you know what? I have a deal coming. It's going to close on Monday. And by Thursday, I'll have the money to pay that bill and help you out. Then what happens? That deal falls through the cracks. You're like, oh, I just made a promise. It's not there. Now you have to go do the walk of shame. Honey, how you doing? You look cute. I love your outfit. But let me get to the point. That deal didn't go through the way that I thought it was. Can you help me out? Can you help us out this one? Don't worry about it. I got it. Sounds like a support, but it hurts. That business owner felt a different vibe behind that statement. Another statement. Yeah, I know. Your deal fell through, something did happen, and you're going to do it next week. I know the drill. Hardened heart statements. Hey, honey, you want to go out to dinner with our friends? Oh, let me guess. You probably have another late night. You have another networking event. Hardened heart. It starts to poison your relationship, your marriage. Now, when I was talking about earlier, we were talking about the second definition of cleave. If you look it up, these two definitions are in the dictionary there. The second definition of cleave is cutting or splitting something apart. So that glue is think about it like Elmer's glue. You guys seen it in school when Elmer's glue gets old. It's all nasty and dingy. That's what your glue starts to look like in your relationship. It's just like, ugh. There's nothing sticking and holding it through. The manifestation. If this hardened heart looks and feels the same rejection as they receive in the marketplace, you will start to see your spouse slip away. Okay? As a business owner, you're going through some serious things out there. You're going through some things that you've never seen before in your whole entire life. And you're just as shocked, and you're trying to make a living, you're trying to get some things happening for your business and for your family. But if there's no place to, and that's the thing about cleaving, they need a heart to fall on. That's why vulnerability actually needs to stay and remain at all costs, because that significant other needs, or that spouse needs a heart to lay on and relax and feel safe. But if it's not there, they'll start to slip away. Now, what happens, the next phase is they stop discussing or communicating their issues. Before, they used to discuss their issues and tell you, okay, here's what's going on, here's how I'm feeling, this is what's happening. But then once they feel this pain, you become what's called an NTK. Does anybody know what that is? Well, of course, because it's up here. You become on that need-to-know basis. I'll only tell you if you need to really know, if it's really going to affect it. That's when I'll tell you. But other than that, I don't want to feel your sting. Find busy work to avoid interactions. Truth is, if they start to feel this pain, so from a business consultant perspective, we can look at a calendar and say, wow, your time management, you're working from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Are they really working that much? Maybe, probably not. But actually, they're probably finding busy work to avoid interactions because they know home is a little painful. Oh, business owners can get real busy real quick. They can find anything to get busy. You're still married on paper, but apart in relationship. That's what it starts to look like. Now your marriage is only based on that paper, and because it's a law and you know divorce is expensive, there's no more relationship. You guys are in operation mode. Before I get into these last two possibilities, remember, there's a place right now in business ownership. Once you go to that first page, first space of business ownership, it's a very empty space. And that very empty space is called the wilderness. That's when you're actually trying to find and you're really trying to define, and there's actually a good positive part of this wilderness, because you're actually coming into a point where you are actually starting to define who you are, You're actually trying to understand perseverance. You're actually trying to figure out faith. You're trying to figure out a lot of things within your business and about yourself through this business journey. And the beauty of it is once you actually find yourself, you will actually find your real self and you'll be truly presenting your relationship in your marriage. The wilderness is a positive place to be, but it's very scary because when you try to converse about the wilderness, you try to tell, hey, you know, things are really cooking. You know, I have a pipeline, I have some things going, but because you've never been there before. Your wife has never been there before. And so you're trying to explain somewhere that you've never been before is a very hard explanation. So it's very hard for your wife or for your significant, however it's set up, to really understand if you have a hard time understanding the wilderness. But here's the two possibilities that can come out of this. If this pattern continues and your spouse makes the business work, let's say they finally start to take off in that third, fourth year, or whenever it is, and they say, I finally got the hang of this, it's starting to happen. The business owner will emotionally say, it will be in their actions. They're not going to actually say it. It will be in their actions. You weren't there. Or, I did it without you. That is the trail that's on its way if you as a husband and wife, if you guys don't figure this out. Or, the stopping pattern, in order to stop this and actually gain momentum and get your marriage under order, if you become humble, vulnerable, patient, in the name of love, not just a force, humble, okay, it's cool. No, in the name of love, all humbleness, and you got to break everything down, all vulnerability, you will speed up your spouse's business. It's a natural support because they actually feel like you got them if they fall. It will help them coast through. Now, what to take out of this? I don't want everybody to take this as a loom and gloom. Like this is like the worst thing ever. I understand I didn't bring up too many positive things. But because marriage and because of how dynamic it is and how challenging it can be, we have to know as business owners how to actually do, it's almost a reintegration of your marriage. And the best way to do this is to renew your vows. I'm not saying you have to go to church and go call everybody but renew your vows. Remember what you vowed to. Both parties. This is the new experience. Come back home. If you guys can have that meeting ground on those vows, that's what those vows were made for, as a meeting ground. When things get bad, for better or for worse, richer or poorer, sickness and health, etc., etc. That's the balance and that's the maintenance in relationships, is to come back home to the vows whenever you're in doubt. And this is one of those areas that can really streamline and help you and your partners, so that way you guys have a beautiful story as to how you guys came from this type of background but changed the direction and dynamics of your whole generation of your life and the kids that you have. So I would like to welcome everybody to join us via Facebook for future conversations. Also Instagram, that's where we do a lot of posting. Also LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter. And on YouTube, follow this video. Please share, like, and help support everybody, people that are out there that are hurting. I hope you guys got a lot of this information, but in the meantime, I have to get back to work. You guys have a great day.